Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jenny. If you've just stumbled on this video, then you won't have any idea who I am. Basically, I decided a few months ago to try to document my experience as a university student doing my year abroad in the city of Grenoble in France, coming from the UK. If you take a look at my channel, you can see that I managed to upload a couple of videos documenting my move and my first month or so, but I've obviously taken a bit of a break from this channel, and things hadn't been going quite as I'd hoped. I'd set out with the goal of documenting the good and the bad on this channel for me, my friends and family, and anyone out there who might be considering or prepping for a year abroad themselves. I didn't manage to upload or record any real content of the last 3 or 4 months, but I'd like to come back on here today and give an update on what's been going on in my life as a student studying abroad and why I chose to come home. You might have guessed by now that I wasn't necessarily having the most amazing time, and that's true, but not even nearly the whole story. Being here in Grenoble, I've met some of the most amazing, interesting and kind people. I've travelled and explored some of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and learnt so much about who I am as a person and how I fit into this crazy world. But at the same time, I've had many moments of intense loneliness, as well as feeling more overwhelmed and lost than I ever expected to feel here. I want to break down the specifics that I struggled with and the specifics of what I loved about my few months abroad. The first factor is an obvious one, and that's the language barrier. When I arrived here, I had an A in A-level French and a few modules of French at uni under my belt. This had gotten me to around a high B1 level, which, for those of you who aren't familiar with the language grading system, is equivalent to a solid intermediate level. So while I expected to struggle adjusting to another foreign language being spoken around me 24/7, I didn't realise how isolating and stressful not being fluent in said language would be. I was able to order in restaurants and communicate with other students, but without asking locals to speak slowly or repeat what they said, I wasn't understanding a lot from native French speakers at all. This forced me to improve my French very quickly, which I did, to around a high B2 level. However, until a month or so had passed, I would be very anxious on a daily basis, fearing someone would strike up conversation with me and I'd not be able to catch a single word. I was also taking my lectures entirely in French, which was just too hard for me. I would say I was getting about 25 to 50% of each lecture's raw content, but that doesn't take into account me understanding the material after having translated it. The second main difficulty that springs to mind is the social aspect of my year abroad. I'm quite an introverted person, but like most people, I need to feel connections with friends, family and community around me to feel happy. Put simply, I didn't have that for the first 2 months or so. I tried my best to make friends with the other students on my course, but language barrier aside, they seemed to have already made their friendship groups. As well as this, while most students I spoke to were friendly, I had a couple of experiences where students mocked my spoken French and excluded me from group activities and classes. While this hurt at the time, I feel I was simply unlucky with lots of the interactions I had with both French and other international students, as I didn't manage to find a group of people I could hang out with for a relatively long time. This added to my feelings of isolation and made everything more difficult for me, as I didn't yet have a support network around me like I did at home in the UK. This leads on nicely to the third issue. Homesickness. I knew that I'd be homesick, but I didn't expect it to affect me so deeply. I miss my family, I miss my friends, I really miss my girlfriend, but I also miss the locations I've called home. I missed the cobbled streets of Norwich, I missed the queer and neurodiverse communities I've become a part of at UEA. I missed the theatres and landmarks of London, and I missed the quiet of my hometown. I also missed the smell of autumn trees in England, which was different from the smell of the trees lining the streets of Grenoble. I missed all of my different homes. But a good thing that came from this is that it gave me a renewed appreciation for how lucky I am to have people and places that I miss like that, and I will never let myself take those things for granted again. The final main issue was my health. I won't go into all the specifics on here, as I just don't feel comfortable digging into all the gory details for anyone to see. But to summarise, I was struggling with both my physical and mental health, and I wasn't sure where to go for help. All of these led to me feeling like I didn't belong, and no matter how much I explored, how much I learnt, how many good things I had, I would still feel like I was failing my year abroad. I would still feel like I was an imposter and that everyone around me was better than me in every single way. This may sound a bit dramatic, but it's how I felt. And now, a final roundup of the other things I found difficult. I was catcalled and approached by random men more than I ever have been before and was made to feel very uncomfortable on many occasions, whether that was walking home on my own or just sat reading my book in public. Second, the mosquitoes. My first week, I genuinely counted over 50 mosquito bites on my body. It was absolutely crazy. And finally, I found it much more difficult to carry on being vegetarian in France. If I wanted to pick up a sandwich for lunch, virtually all of them would have meat or fish in them, so I'd end up eating pastries or a baguette and some cheese for lunch. but this does lead me on to the good things about my time in France. Number 1. The food. France is known for being a global capital of gourmet foods and gastronomy, and it did not disappoint. On every street there were multiple boulangeries and patisseries, not to mention the meat and dairy shops, or the markets. Baguettes and pastries are relatively cheap and affordable from independent shops, and they are amazing quality. There are also often weekly markets with stalls offering the freshest fruit and veg, all for very reasonable prices. Number 2. The city of Grenoble. I fell in love with this city again and again in my short time here. It's full of culture in the forms of museums, cinemas, art galleries and exhibitions. It has the most beautiful architecture and parks, plenty of shopping centres as well as tons of independent shops in the old city centre. And the obvious fact that it's in the Alps. From most streets you can see snow-capped mountains and hills, and these are only a short bus ride away from the city itself. This leads on to another huge positive, the public transport. There is an amazing network of trams and buses throughout the city and surrounding areas, as well as a train station and bus station right in the centre of town. This allowed me to make the most of these facilities and travel to surrounding areas. I was able to take just over hour-long bus rides to places like Lyon, Annecy and further into the Alps to see Mont Blanc and other gorgeous small towns. I also went on a trip to Munich for Oktoberfest, which was incredible. I got to explore the city, which was absolutely gorgeous, as well as get involved in some traditional beer drinking in the tents set up for locals and tourists alike. On this trip and in the rest of my time here, I met so many amazing people who have now become true friends of mine. I also met loads of amazing people only briefly who I will never bump into again, but I'm still so glad to have met them. This was one of the biggest positives of all. I also strengthened pre-existing friendships and relationships over many video calls, texts, and through exchanging brain-rotting memes. All of this said, it wasn't easy to make the decision to come home. In fact, it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. I had to think to myself, what was the good in staying in an environment that required me to sacrifice my mental and physical health when I had the option to go home and recover? So I decided, after consultation with my friends, family, both universities and medical professionals, that the right decision for me was to head home. And that's what I did. I booked a flight back to the UK and have since been staying with my girlfriend up in Scotland where she's starting her PhD. I will alternate between staying with her, staying with my family and visiting friends into the coming academic year, where I will return to UEA to complete my degree. I hope to document the rest of this period of my life in updates on this channel, but we'll see how that goes. I'm currently back in Grenoble to collect the rest of my things and to say goodbye to my friends and the city that I called home for a few short months of my life. I just want to finish up this video by acknowledging how privileged I have been to have this experience and how I'll forever be grateful for the opportunities offered to me over the last half a year and to everyone who has supported me in any way, shape or form. So yeah, that was my semester abroad. What advice would I give to anyone who might be watching this video right now thinking about doing a semester or a year abroad? I would say do whatever is right for you at the time. Have new experiences, explore and make new friends. Work hard at your course but make time for yourself. Don't be afraid to say, this isn't right for me. And of course, where going home was the right decision for me, it might not be the right decision for you. Everyone has their own unique set of circumstances, their own unique struggles and passions, and their own unique way of seeing and experiencing the world. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you stick around for the next one.